Welcome to Y News, I am Christopher. U.S. Treasuries are the biggest mine in the financial markets right now, and many people are worried that when this mine explodes, it will cause huge turmoil in the international markets. So how much does the U.S. really owe and will they default? If a default occurs, how will China be affected? For China, the most concerned thing about the U.S. debt thunderstorm is naturally whether it should sell U.S. debt now. How much U.S. Treasury debt is there? As of February 2023, the total U.S. national debt exceeded a historic $31 trillion, according to official U.S. data. According to the latest U.S. demographic data released in 2023, the U.S. population is around 140 million. From these two sets of data, we can do a calculation for every American. We can learn that basically every American needs to carry a debt of $21,171. Some people may say that Americans make a lot of money, and that this money is not much when spread evenly to each person. One must understand that the total population of the United States also includes a large number of people who do not have jobs and earning power. If it is a family of 3 with 2 working people, the family will need to carry $63,513 in debt, which is not a small number. Especially now that prices in the United States are rising like crazy and the economy is under pressure. This money can be the last straw that crushes a family completely. The U.S. government is in a situation of high debt. Not only make the daily life of the American people bad, so that the U.S. government is also in deep water, the edge of bankruptcy. The U.S. has an annual deficit of $1.4 trillion in 2022. Many countries have incurred fiscal deficits in 2022, which is the general environment resulting in the inability to change. But the general situation of the government deficit is not yet to the United States so outrageous, and moreover the United States still has $31 trillion in debt. That is to say, the United States is now facing the situation is in debt, while hard work a year also lost $1.4 trillion U.S. debt. This is put on anyone who cannot stand. The expanding fiscal spending of the U.S. government has also led to the incomplete operation of the U.S. debt system in jeopardy. Will the U.S. default? The pressure on the U.S. debt is not only in terms of principal, but also in terms of interest, which is a headache for the U.S. In 2023, the U.S. will need to repay $661 billion in interest. We often hear news of interest rate hikes on U.S. debt bringing inflation to countries, but the truth is that the U.S. is not exactly well off. The U.S. itself has a very high interest rate because the principal owed is just too high. With the crazy interest rate hike from 2022 to 2023, the interest rate on the U.S. debt has gone up by more than $200 billion crazy between the years, which is enough to see how much pressure there is on the interest rate on the U.S. debt. Since the U.S. is under so much pressure, is there a risk that they might default? The answer is that it is possible. The reason why it is possible, rather than absolutely cannot pay back, because the United States, after all, still has the economic strength. If the United States must pay back the money, reduce military spending or sell some assets is able to pay back. But they can't pay it back, mainly because the money owed is too much. The U.S. GDP in 2022 is only $25.46 trillion, but already owes $31 trillion in U.S. debt, and then in addition to the interest on the U.S. debt. The U.S. is still under a lot of pressure to pay back on time in this situation. Where is the U.S. money being spent? For this question I think many people are more or less curious. After all, the United States is the first rich country, why has become the first negative country? In fact, the main or the United States of America's expenditure is too large. The most expensive activity invented by mankind is war, and the United States is partial to the war enthusiastically. The United States annual military spending up to more than $800 billion US dollars, firmly occupying the first US spending. The rest of the money is generally used to pay off debts and is generally used for social welfare. Only a very small portion can really be used to give the United States to do construction. So from this point of view, the economic regeneration ability of the United States is actually relatively poor. Economic development is not able to long-term. Should China sell US debt? We have analyzed the situation of US debt from 4 directions, so let's talk about whether China should sell US debt. We need to understand that the most essential reason for buying US debt is to get the benefit and gain. If the US economy is not developing well, we can't get the benefit. From this point of view, in the long run, China's selling of US bonds is an inevitable trend. But at the moment China can also buy a certain amount of short-term US debt, because the interest rate on US debt is now very high. A dump and a buy, to do everything possible to ensure that China's interests are maximized. Just now we used the official data released by the United States to the United States economic situation to calculate for accounts. You can see that the risk of default on US debt is very high, and at the same time, once the debt default, the harm caused is also very large. Therefore, many countries are now choosing to save their lives and sell off US debt. What else do you think about the US debt? Welcome to leave a message in the comments section.